In this video, we are talking about how to write a persuasive paragraph. We're using a structure called TEAL, which stands for topic sentence, elaboration, evidence, and linking statement. It's not the only type of paragraph structure that's out there, but it's a consistent and reliable way to make sure you get your point across. We're going to start by looking at the topic sentence. The purpose of the topic sentence is to introduce the topic of the paragraph. In preparation to writing your essay, you should have created an essay plan. This is an example of a paragraph plan that would have been in the planning template. On the far side of my plan, I can see what the topic of my paragraph is going to be. In this case, it's environmental impact. The goal of my topic sentence is to tell the reader that this paragraph is going to be about environmental impact. There's a couple of other keywords that are going to be useful. The topic of my essay is that cats should be banned, so the word cats should be in my topic sentence. I might also want to be clear about whether it's a positive or a negative environmental impact, so that people are really clear which side of the argument I'm taking. My topic sentence in this case is, cats have a negative environmental impact. It's a really clear, simple sentence which tells the reader what the rest of the paragraph is going to aim to establish. The second part of my TEAL structure is the elaboration, and this is where I provide more information on the topic to make sure I clarify understanding. When we read this idea that cats have a negative environmental impact, we could misinterpret that in a couple of different ways. For example, does this suggest that if I carry a cat over towards a tree, the tree will die straight away? Well, no, that's a pretty extreme example, but I could misinterpret that based on the information I've been given at this point. So the elaboration is about identifying the key terms in the topic sentence and explaining what you mean. The first key term is the word cats. So in what context am I talking about cats? Am I talking about cats when they've just been born? Am I talking about cats in other countries? Am I talking about cats that are locked in their homes? For this particular paragraph, I'm talking about pet cats that are let outside in neighbourhood areas. They're the ones that are having the negative environmental impact, not the ones that are locked inside their houses. So I have to be really specific. I'm not talking about all cats, I'm talking about cats in this context. I have to do the same thing regarding the negative environmental impact. What do I mean by that? If a tree falls over in the woods, arguably that's a negative environmental impact. If I accidentally step on an ant mound, that's a negative environmental impact. So we have to be really clear on what we mean by this term. In this case, what I mean is that cats can hunt and kill native wildlife and disturb other animals. That's the negative environmental impact that I'm talking about in this paragraph. So by clarifying those two things, I've given the reader a much clearer idea about what I'm going to be talking about. This is what the finished elaboration looks like. When pet cats are let outside in neighbourhood areas, they can hurt and kill wildlife and disturb other animals. Here's an annotated version which shows how the colours match up. The red represents the term that was in the topic sentence that I had to explain in the elaboration, and the yellow shows the other term that I've explained. That's the purpose of the elaboration. My next section is about adding evidence, and in this case I'm going to move through this fairly quickly because it takes me back to my essay plan. When you created your essay plan, you had to say what technique you were going to use for each piece of evidence, and you also had to create an example of that technique. So in this video I'm not talking about how to write numerical evidence because I've already done that in my plan. All I need to do is take this information that already exists and move it across into my essay. This is what my paragraph looks like when it's got that evidence attached. You can see that each piece of evidence moves in order. You'll also notice that each piece of evidence supports the topic sentence, which is about negative environmental impact, and also suits the elaboration when I mentioned it was all about hunting and killing native wildlife and disturbing other animals. Sometimes in this process, you have to do a bit of tweaking. My last sentence reads, "A cat walking down a street turns silence into symphony." What I'm talking about in this case is how they make dogs bark, but that's not really clear. So I've just added a little bit to my last sentence to make sure that it came out clearly. There's nothing wrong with changing some of the elements of your evidence to make it flow and be clearer to the reader. I'm up to the last part of my paragraph, and this is what we call the linking statement. It's really important, particularly as our paragraphs get longer and longer, that we remember to bring it back to the key focus. Now the focus in this case is that cats should be banned. So while I've been rabbiting on about cats having a negative impact on the environment, my reader might have forgotten the fact that this entire discussion is about banning cats. So before I move on to another argument, I want to make sure that this argument is connecting to the overall point that I'm trying to argue. And that's what the linking statement does. In my example, I've written, because of the damaging and disruptive nature of cats, the only way to preserve the environment is to ban them. You can see that I've tried to summarise exactly what I've said in the rest of my paragraph and then link it to this action of banning them, because that's the key thing I want my reader to be thinking about as they finish each paragraph. This gives a clear impression of exactly what a teal structured paragraph should look like, and I can apply this using my plan to any other paragraph that's within my table using the same strategy.